Alright, so if you've clicked on this video, you want to do a swap, you want to get big horsepower, and you don't want to buy a Elephant, you don't want to buy a ZZ632 and spend $30,000 on the engine, you're looking to achieve that horsepower as cheap as possible. And that's what this video is designed around. So let's get into it. To the digital board of knowledge! So engine swap paradox, we're going to be looking at LS, Coyote, Hellcat, salvage yard swaps, real world reality check on what exactly it's going to take to get to 700 horsepower or more, and what is the cheapest, most effective way to do that. See, the problem is if you go on the internet and you start searching around, they make 700 horsepower seem very, very achievable. The hidden hype, like you'll see, I'm just making up an arbitrary number here, you go into Summit Racing and you'll see this kit for like $2,000, whether it's nitrous or turbo or supercharger. Again, you know, it's probably more than that, but we're just using that as a rough number. $2,000, bolt-on 700 horsepower. That sounds great. The reality check is, though, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Bottom line is, there is a tax, a money pit to get to 700 horsepower, and we need to look at that money pit and decide what is the most efficient way to achieve that type of power. So what are we looking at here? So, Budget King LS3, without a doubt. Now, there are cheaper LSs. I just went with the LS3 because the LS3 as a package by itself is pretty freaking awesome. You're going to be looking between like $2,500 and $4,500. That's very affordable. And you're going to be right up around 430 horsepower. Not bad at all. Then you got the Coyote. 2018 Plus, you want that one because that one has all the special features. Now, again, you can buy cheaper Coyotes, but $3,500 to $6,000. Okay, I mean, that's a little bit more expensive, but you know what? That's pretty awesome. Then you got a totaled out Hellcat for a donor, like if you want to go a donor route, $12,000 to $22,000. Now, don't get me wrong, in these you can do donors as well, but I'll explain why it doesn't really matter later. All right, so let's pretend you went with the Budget King, you went with the LS. We're going to pretend it's a donor car. So you're going to get the transmission, everything. We're not going to talk about price. We're just going to talk about that as a whole. What are the awesomeness about it? Well, literally you can like take these LSs out of like U-Hauls and stuff like that. Now an LS3, you have to get something like a Camaro. Anyways, they're found millions of trucks and stuff like that if you just want to get any LS. Like they are dirt cheap. They are everywhere. They got a simple rod, cam and block is what they call it. Overhead valve, that is your standard, like, okay, the cam goes here, it connects to a lifter, which connects to a push rod, which connects to a rocker arm, which connects to a valve. Very, very simple. These engines are crazy easy to take apart. The mechanics are like, you see a problem and you pretty much know already what the problem is just by looking at the engine on how it's acting because of the simplicity behind these. Not to mention, man, you're talking about dead brain repairs. There is no critical thinking behind this. The part stores, all of them. You can buy all the parts you need to replace these for like pennies. Super, super available. Again, no complex dual overhead camshafts, nothing like that. Very, very simple. This is the cheat code for 430 horsepower, the cheapest, most simple way possible. Now, let's pretend we want to take the same LS3 and we want to get 700 horsepower. What are we looking at here? All right, so we're going to start with the base junkyard price, $2,500 to $4,000, okay? Not too bad at all. Well, you got to make it handle the power you're going to make. So you're going to want to get forged internals, pistons, rods, crankshaft, ported heads, valve springs, crankshaft assembly, camshaft assembly, lifters. Then you got to get yourself a supercharger or a turbo, plus intercooler, plus fuel system, plus fuel pump, an ECU plus a tune. Realistically, you're looking at about $12,000 to $22,000 to get up to 7,000 horsepower. And now remember, that just gets you on the dyno. You're not in the car yet. You're just getting to the dyno. That's it. Engine on dyno for $12,000 to $22,000. All right, Coyote. Very high tech. This is arguably one of the most high tech swappable, no, that's not quite the word, hot rodding engines out there. So you are looking at overhead cams. It's just freaking awesome right out of the box. You're getting direct port induction. That means that it shoots in fuel like a diesel. So you can run really shitty gas on really high compression. You're looking at 12-to-1 compression. And you can run 87 octane gas. You're going to lose a little bit at the top end, but does that really matter? It uses variable valve timing or cam timing. So it's TI VCT. What that's going to do is adjust your cams to always being at the maximum power band. So like when you're putting in a cam in an LS, you degree the cam and you can adjust it, like retard it or advance it, depending on what you're trying to achieve, because that gives you different things. So I'm not going to go, we'll make a whole video on that. The point is you can retard and advance it, and it changes the characteristics of the engine, whether you want low end power, good fuel mileage, or top end power. This bad boy does it on the fly, and not just crappy on and off. Like, yes, the older Coyotes, the cam advance was on or off. That was just the way it works. This can adjust it and tweak it as you go. So you can get really good fuel mileage plus really high-end power. The red line on this bad boy is like 7,500 RPMs, almost 8 grand. Dual overhead cam. This is an impressive engine. Very impressive. And they put them in Mustangs. So you can get yourself a donor Mustang with a transmission, and honestly, you put it in like an old Fox body or whatever you want to put it in, you have a badass motherfucker. Like, that is going to be the bee's knees. You're going to get great fuel mileage. It's just going to scream like, "Aah!" Just when you think the engine's about to blow. Now you're just getting into red line. You still got like 500 more RPMs to go before you have to shift. They're a masterpiece. They are good. They are really awesome. For 400 horsepower, yeah, you're good to go. You take everything out, the factory computer, everything like that. Now let's pretend you want to turn this 400 horsepower engine into 700 horsepower. Man, you are going to be looking at an entire forged rotating assembly. I do believe they have forged crankshafts. I'm not really sure on that. I'd have to look it up real quick, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to say an entire forged assembly. Ported heads, you're going to have to get a supercharger or a turbo setup plus intercooler, fuel upgrades, ECU, custom tune. You're looking at starting off at $3,000 to $6,000, going up to $14,000 to $25,000. And again, this just gets you on the dyno. You haven't even installed it in your vehicle yet. That is a whole nother mess of problems. So the problem is the wall you hit. Yes, the LS is the cheapest way to get over 400 horsepower. Drop it in your vehicle, and it's reliable. It runs great. Great low-end power. The Coyote, great way to have high horsepower, just screaming performance. Be on the technological edge of horsepowering and hot rodding, but you hit a wall. You become your own R&D. Now you have to figure these things out. So with the budget builds, you're going to start running into problems, and that is the forced induction tax. When you start adding forced induction on there as the power levels go up, you're going to start running into building heat, belt slipping, tuning headaches. Oh man, it just keeps going on. ECU problems, fueling problems. Now you have drivetrain problems. Now actually inside the vehicle, will my transmission handle 700 horsepower? Probably not. What about my U-joints? Probably not. What about my drive shaft? Probably not. Rear end? Yeah, not so well. Now I can get up to 130 miles per hour like the snap of my finger. What about my braking system? How's my braking system doing? Yeah, that's probably not up to par either. So that money I showed you earlier, that just gets you on the dyno. Now you still have to get it in. You need to handle all these things. The bottom line is you stop being a mechanic and you start being your own R&D system. Now this is just one example. One of many of the problems you're going to run into when building that kind of power on like the LS or the Coyote engines. Are you going to hit a brick wall when it comes to mass airflow sensors? Your MFA or your MAF sensors can only read so much, plus it struggles with density. So it's more about airflow and velocity. Well, now you're packing more air in a smaller spot and it's getting density, so the velocity isn't really increasing, but there's a whole bunch more inside of that, and it can run into problems. Yeah, on lower boost levels, it's not an issue. It can definitely handle that. But you start getting up to 700 horsepower, now you're running into blind spots. It can't accurately read the amount of air coming in, so now it's no longer calculating the volume of air, and well, now it's going to screw up your fuel ratio. You're going to go lean, and you're going to completely burn your engine out. Running into the danger zone once your sensors peg out. Remember, these sensors are made for naturally aspirated horsepower around 400 to 500 horsepower. You start getting outside of that, you're going to have issues. Now you got to get it tuned. And you know what? You have to trust the tuner enough to be able to give you a tune that's going to be taking care of thousands and thousands of dollars of your own money. Again, about $22,000 is probably what it's going to take you to get on the dyno with that kind of power. What if his tune's crap? Now my motor grenades. Is he going to warranty that? Is he going to replace that stuff? No. So now you have to find a tuner that's credible enough to put in a tune to be able to handle that. Then you're probably going to have to start changing around your sensors. You're going to have to change your intake plumbing. You're probably going to have to go from MAF to speed density sensor, which is a whole nother ball of wax on what's going on. Then you get to hit the speed density sensor, a 2 or 3 bar. You're going to have a standalone air fuel map. You're going to have to constantly tune that air fuel map because it's going to work off of vacuum and throttle position and stuff like that. It's complicated. And this is just one issue you're going to run into when getting 700 horsepower. There's a pile of them. This is just one. So here's the cheat code. You buy a total old Hellcat, right? What it's going to come with is everything. Everything to have 700 horsepower, good enough to drive across the country if you want. Heavy duty transmission, fuel system, PCM, wiring harness, and the beauty of this is the R&D is 100% finished. Dodge spent millions and millions and millions of dollars torture testing these things on dynos, torture testing the transmissions, making sure all the parts work together in symmetry, making sure everything can handle that type of power up to 100,000 miles. They have to do that because if they don't, you know what's going to happen? A whole bunch of vehicles are going to come back for recalls and repairs because typically a warranty is 100,000 miles. So they have to make sure that they can at least make it 100,000 miles. All that millions of dollars of R&D that was put into that, you get to take advantage of that. And see, here's the beauty of it too. The math of a salvage flip, yeah, you're going to take the fuel system, transmission, and stuff like that, but there's still a whole bunch of money that can be recovered. Window glass, seats, body panels, trim, brakes if you don't use those. The sky's the limit on how much you want to hustle on this. You can turn your $20,000 car, salvage car, get that all the way down to like $8,000 because every little part is worth money, and if you take that all apart, piece by piece, and sell every piece that's not broken and every piece you're not going to use, man, you can get that right down there. So you can be looking at 700 horsepower for like $8,000. So that's what you need to pay attention to. If you're looking, honestly, right now, to get 700 horsepower as cheaply as possible, reliable, have a complete ecosystem that's going to work in harmony, honestly, probably buy a Hellcat. And the reason we're going with a Hellcat is because they put enough of them out there to where you can actually get salvage ones for pretty cheap. Yes, it'd be great to go and buy the new Corvette and get what is it, LT7 and have 1,100 horsepower. But yeah, there's not a lot of those out there. And that's a Corvette drivetrain that you can't just swap into something else because now you got the transmission on the rear end. That's a whole mess of problems. It's not going to fit in anything but a Corvette as of this time. Now you can take the engine up, but well, now you got to get a transmission. Okay, we got the transmission, now you got to get a drive shaft. Now you got to get a rear end. Now you got to get a fuel system that can handle that stuff. So doing the actual swaps, the best way to do it, without a doubt, is doing a junkyard pull. But you want the entire donor car. So if you want 430 horsepower, an LS3 out of a busted up Camaro, that's the way to go. You got the transmission, the drive shaft, everything you're going to need to make that work great. If you want a Ford product and you want to stay around 400 horsepower, a Coyote is the way to go. Get a 2018 or newer, get the new fuel injection, you get great gas mileage, you can put shitty gas in there. That dollar adds up. Yeah, out of the gate, an LS3 is cheaper than the Coyote. But what about over 100,000 miles when I'm spending $2 less per gallon on fuel? That Coyote is quickly going to become cheaper than the LS because I can run 87 octane in that bad boy. And it's just fine. I have to run, 91 in the LS3s? That adds up. Even at $1, like every, what would it be? We'll say it gets 20 miles to the gallon. I don't know what the exact is, but we're just going to pretend 20 miles to the gallon. Every 20 miles, I spend an extra dollar on the LS that I wouldn't spend on the Coyote. So over 200,000 miles, look at how quickly that adds up. Yeah. So instead of 200,000, be like, what, $20,000 cheaper if I go 200,000 miles, and if I go 100,000 miles, that's $10,000 cheaper. So it ultimately becomes cheaper to run the Coyote than the LS over the length of its life just because you can run 87 octane fuel. Anyways, hope this video shined a little bit of light on it for you. Got a little better idea of what you're going to do. If you'd like to help support the channel, best way to do that is click on that Amazon affiliate link in the description. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. I'll kick back for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.